Um, Um, there's nothing else to do, and I want to be able to connect with whoever is maybe seeing that. So if you want to chat, just testing things. Mm. Mm. Delicious. Mm. Let,
Hello,
let's
welcome
put
to
some
PEH
clothes.
217 Behavioral Approaches. Today we will be discussing Gestalt therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Gestalt therapy is an existential, phenomenological, and
Tell me all
process
about
based
it.
approach created on the premise that individuals must be understood in the context of their ongoing relationship with the environment. Awareness, choice, and responsibility are cornerstones of practice. The initial goal is for clients to expand their awareness of what they are experiencing in the present moment. The approach is phenomenological because it focuses on the client's perceptions of reality, and existential because it is grounded in the notion that people are always in the process of becoming, remaking, and rediscovering themselves. Fritz Perls was the main originator and developer of Gestalt therapy. Influenced by psychoanalytic concepts, he took issue with Freud's theories on a number of grounds. The Gestalt approach focuses on the here and now,
Mm-hmm.
the what and how of experiencing, the authenticity of the therapist, active dialogic inquiry and exploration, and the I thou of relating. Perels stressed a holistic approach to personality, self acceptance, knowledge of the environment, responsibility for choices, and the ability to make contact with their field, i.e., a dynamic system of interrelationships, and the people in it are important awareness and goals, all of which are based on a here and now experiencing that is always changing. Contemporary relational Gestalt therapy stresses dialogue and the I thou relationship between the client and therapist. Therapists emphasize the therapeutic relationship and work collaboratively with clients in a search for understanding by stressing support, acceptance, empathy, respect, and dialogue, as well as confrontation. Gestalt therapy is an experimental approach in that clients come to grips with what and how they are thinking, feeling, and doing as they interact with the therapist. And one of Fritz's famous quotes is, "The only way out is through." I think they use that also in The Princess Bride, but that's another issue. Therapy aims at awareness and contact with the environment, which consists of both the external and internal worlds. By becoming aware, clients become able to make informed choices and thus live a more meaningful existence. Fritz Perls practiced a paternalistic form of Gestalt therapy. Clients have to grow up, stand on their own 2 feet, and deal with their life problems themselves. In other words, put on your big girl panties and get over your life. Perl's style of conducting therapy was to intentionally frustrate clients to enhance their awareness. A basic assumption of Gestalt therapy is that individuals have the capacity to self-regulate when they are aware of what is happening inside of them and around them. The Gestalt therapy of change hypothesizes that the more we work at becoming who or what we are not, the more we remain the same. Authentic change occurs more from being who we are than from trying to be who we are not. With the Gestalt paradoxical theory of change, therapists ask clients to invest themselves fully in their current condition rather than striving to become who they should be. Gestalt therapists believe people will change and grow when they experience who they really are in the world. So let's break down some of the principles of Gestalt therapy theory. First, we have holism, which is the idea that systems, being that physical, biological, social, etc., and their properties should be viewed as wholes, not just as a collection of parts, meaning they are all interlocking and become a larger entity when put together. Gestalt is a German word meaning a whole or completion or a form that cannot be separated into parts without losing its essence. Gestalt therapists are interested in the whole person. They attend to a client's thoughts, feelings, behaviors, body, memories, and dreams. Gestalt therapy is based on field theory, which, simply put, asserts that the organism must be seen in its environment or in its context as part of the constantly changing field. Figure, those aspects of the individual's experience that are most salient at any moment, salient meaning important, or the ground, those aspects of the client's presentation that are often out of his or her awareness. So those are those elements that may be alluded to, but the individual doesn't realize how important they are within the context of the story they are experiencing. The figure formation process tracks how the individual organizes experience from moment to moment as some aspect of the environmental field emerges from the background and becomes the focal point of the individual's attention and interest. Organismic self-regulation is a process by which organisms will do their best to regulate themselves given their own capabilities and the resources of their environment. Individuals can take actions and make contacts to restore equilibrium or to contribute to growth and change. What emerges in the therapeutic work is what is of interest to the client or what the client needs to gain equilibrium or to change. Gestalt therapists direct the client's awareness to the figures that emerge from the background during a therapy session and use the figure formation process as a guide for the focus of therapy work. In Gestalt therapy, contact is necessary if change and growth are to occur. Contact is made by seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, and moving. Effective contact means interacting with nature and with other people without losing one's sense of individuality. Prerequisites for good contact are clear awareness, full energy, and the ability to express oneself. Contact between therapist and client are key to Gestalt therapy practice. After a contact experience, there is typically a withdrawal to integrate what has been learned. And we'll see the cycle of experience down here in terms of sensation, awareness, mobilization of energy, action, contact, closure, and then withdrawal. Gestalt therapists talk about the two functions of boundaries, to connect and to separate. Both contact and withdrawal are necessary and important to healthy functioning. Gestalt therapists also focus on interruptions, disturbances, and resistances to contact, which were developed as coping process. Because resistances are developed as a means of coping with life questions, they possess positive qualities as well as problematic ones. Gestalt therapists refer to them as contact boundary phenomena. And we have another quote by Fritz over here. Awareness in and of itself is curative, meaning as soon as you become aware, you can begin correcting whatever the action is that you need to correct. Boundary disturbance refers to the characteristic styles people employ in their environment through one of these channels of resistance. It is important to explore what the resistance does for clients, what it protects them from, and what it keeps them from experiencing. One of the main contributions of the Gestalt approach is its emphasis on learning to appreciate and fully experience the present moment. Focusing on the past and the future can be a way to avoid coming to terms with the present. As clients direct their energy toward what was or what might have been, or live in fantasy about the future, the power of the present diminishes.
Mm-hmm.
So there are 5 kinds of contact boundary disturbances. Number 1 is introjection, which is the tendency to uncritically accept others' beliefs and standards without assimilating them to make them congruent with who we are. Projection is the reverse of introjection. In projection, we disown certain aspects of ourselves by assigning them to the environment. Retroflexion consists of turning back onto ourselves what we would like to do to someone else, or doing to ourselves what we would like someone else to do to us or for us. Deflection is the process of distraction or veering off so that it is difficult to maintain a sustained sense of contact. Finally, confluence involves blurring the differentiation between the self and the environment. And again, here is where you see a visual representation of these boundary disturbances. So to review, introjection, taking information in whole without critically examining it, becoming overly compliant. Projection puts out your feelings onto others, which leads to paranoia. Retroflexion, turn onto what you would like someone else to do. Deflection, distancing from your feelings and others. So you would use excessive humor and you would ask a lot of questions. Confluence, which is where you lack awareness of how you and someone else are actually 2 different people. When you engage in these boundary disturbances, you don't have true contact with the self. Moving on to a concept called unfinished business. When figures emerge from the background but are not completed and resolved, individuals are left with unfinished business, which can be manifested in unexpressed feelings such as resentment, rage, hatred, pain, anxiety, grief, guilt, and abandonment. Feelings not fully experienced in awareness, they linger in the background and are carried into present life in ways that interfere with effective contact with oneself and others. These incomplete directions do seek completion when they get powerful enough. The individual is beset with preoccupation, compulsive behavior, wariness, oppressive energy, and much self-defeating behavior. Unfinished business persists until the individual faces and deals with the unexpressed feelings. Then we have the impasse, or a stuck point, which occurs when external support is not available or the customary way of being does not work. Gestalt therapy is based on the notion that individuals have a striving toward actualization and growth, and that if they accept all aspects of themselves without judging these dimensions, they can begin to think, feel, and act differently. Moving on to energy and blocks to energy. When energy is blocked, it may result in unfinished business. Special attention is given to where energy is located, how it is used, and how it can be blocked. One of the tasks of the therapist is to help clients find the focus of interrupted energy, identify the ways in which they are blocking energy, and transform this blocked energy into more adaptive behaviors. The therapist's job is to invite clients into an active partnership where they can learn about themselves by adopting an experimental attitude towards life in which they try out new behaviors and notice what happens. Contemporary Gestalt practitioners view clients as the experts on their own experience and encourage them to attend to their sensory awareness in the present. The therapist functions as a guide and a catalyst, presents experiments and shares observations, and the basic work of therapy is done by the client. Today, Gestalt therapists do not force change on clients through confrontation. So Fritz Perls' original intention behind Gestalt therapy with frustrating the client has given way to a more collaborative perspective. Body language plays an important function in Gestalt therapists in terms of how they pay attention. These nonverbal cues provide rich information as they often present feelings which the client is unaware of. So somebody who is playing with their shirt sleeves, that is a sign of being nervous and they're trying to disguise it. Someone who uses their handbag and puts it in front of them, they're using it as a barrier, that is their shield. Additionally, Gestalt therapists place emphasis on the relationship between language patterns and personality. Client speech patterns are often an expression of their feelings, thoughts, and attitudes. People are storytellers. Many people come to therapy to change the titles of their stories rather than to transform their life stories. In this sense, when you tell a story, most of us make ourselves either the hero or the fool in our story. And it is based on the intention behind the story. Do we want to look heroic or do we want to make people laugh? But if you are the victim in the story, you oftentimes are not comfortable with that victim mentality and you want to change the way that story is told, or you want to change the thought behind that story. That title of the story gets changed, and Gestalt therapists can help you with that. Examples of language that Gestalt therapists might focus on include it talk. When clients say it instead of I, they are using depersonalized language. They're taking themselves out of the story. You talk. Impersonal language tends to keep the person hidden, substituting I when this is what is meant. So in this context, when someone is talking about something that has happened to them, but they're using that second person, when you have this experience, blah, 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 that is, they're literally removing themselves from the situation. Questions. Gestalt therapists often ask clients to experiment with changing their questions into statements. And again, a lot of times clients are uncertain and unsure, so their phrases often end with that question mark, and the therapist will then ask them to rephrase it as a declarative statement. Language that denies power. Clients have a tendency to deny their personal power by adding qualifiers or disclaimers to their statements. Experiment with omitting qualifiers such as maybe, perhaps, sort of, I guess, possibly, and I suppose can help clients change ambivalent messages into clear and direct statements. This is especially true with young women who have been taught to maintain a level of humility or not to take too much credit. And you have to oftentimes help them overcome the societal or cultural norms in order for them to address and accept the power that they've earned. Listening to clients' metaphors. Examples of metaphors include, it's hard for me to spill my guts here. At times I feel that I don't have a leg to stand on. Beneath the metaphor may lie a suppressed internal dialogue that represents critical unfinished business or reactions to a present interaction. And then finally, listening for language that uncovers a story. Clients often use language that is elusive yet gives significant clues to a story that illustrates their life struggles. So if you're talking to a client and they're alluding to the fact that, well, everybody has bad experiences with abuse as a child, that is an area that you could then pursue in more detail, because that is a clue that there is a deeper issue going on in this conversation. Then we get into Miriam Polster, who wrote with her husband Irving a very important book, Gestalt Therapy Integrated: Contours of Theory and Practice. And she identifies 3 stages of integration that characterize client growth in therapy. Number 1, clients reach a new realization about themselves. Number 2, accommodation. Clients recognize that they have a choice. And number 3, assimilation. Clients learn how to influence their environment. So for those of you who may remember learning about Piaget, she is using the learning information that Piaget discussed with assimilation and accommodation as part of the integration of learning about oneself through Gestalt therapy. So let's move into the therapeutic techniques and procedures. Gestalt therapy methodology is tailored to the needs of clients, and experiments are typically represented in an invitational manner. Exercises are ready-made techniques that sometimes are used to make something happen in a therapy session or to achieve a goal. Experiments, in contrast, grow out of the interaction between client and therapist, and they emerge within this dialogic process. Frew defines the experiment as a method that shifts the focus of counseling from talking about a topic to an activity that will heighten the client's awareness and understanding through experience. An experiment is an intervention and an active technique that facilitates the collaborative exploration of a client's experience. Experiences are a key part of the ongoing dialogue between client and therapist, not a method to fix the client or to make the therapy process more exciting. Clients will get more from Gestalt experiments if they are oriented and prepared for them through a trusting relationship with the therapist. And remember, that is the most important element for therapy overall, is that relationship between the client and the therapist. Clients are more likely to recognize their resistance and allow themselves to participate in these experiments. Gestalt therapists expect and respect the emergence of reluctance and meet clients wherever they are. The idea of resistance is viewed as a creative adjustment to a situation. We need to respect resistance, take it seriously, and view it as the energy and not the enemy. Exercises are pre-planned activities that can be used to elicit emotion, produce action, or achieve a specific goal. Experiments, in contrast, are spontaneously created to fit what is happening in the therapeutic process and can be useful tools to help clients gain fuller awareness, experience internal conflicts, resolve inconsistencies and dichotomies, and work through impasses that prevent completion of unfinished business. So let's get back to this discussion of confrontation. Contemporary relational Gestalt therapy has evolved to include more support and increased kindness and compassion in therapy. While Pearls practice a highly confrontational approach as a way to deal with avoidance, this technique-focused style of working has given way to a more dialogue-centered methodology today. In contemporary Gestalt therapy, confrontation is set up in a way that invites clients to examine their behaviors, attitudes, and thoughts. So, confrontation, as it is used in modern day Gestalt therapy, is not an aggressive, frustration inducing style, but more of a I'm going to challenge you to examine these behaviors, thoughts, and attitudes. We also want to pay close attention to splits in personality function. A main division is between the quote unquote top dog and the quote unquote underdog. And therapy often focuses on the war between the two. The top dog is righteous, authoritarian, moralistic, demanding, bossy, and manipulative. This is the critical parent that badgers with should and oughts and manipulates with threats of catastrophe. The underdog manipulates by playing the role of the victim, by being defensive, apologetic, helpless, and weak, and by feigning powerlessness. This is the passive side, the one without responsibility, and the one that finds excuses. The conflict between the two opposing poles in the personality is rooted in the mechanism of introjection, which involves incorporating aspects of others, usually one's parents, into your personality. It is essential that clients become aware of their introjects, especially the toxic introjects that poison the person and prevent personality integration.
Yep.
So now we're going to talk about the empty chair exercise, which is frequently used in Gestalt therapy. And it is a vehicle for the technique of role reversal, which is useful in bringing into consciousness the fantasies of what the other might be thinking or feeling. And when we talk about the other, we're talking about the other part of you, not the other person you're angry at. This is a role-playing technique in which all of the parts are played by the client. Using two chairs, the therapist asks the client to sit in one chair and be fully the top dog, then shift to the other chair and become the underdog. The dialogue can continue between both sides of the client. The conflict can be resolved by the client's acceptance and integration of both sides. The goal of this exercise is to promote a higher level of integration between the polarities and conflicts that exist in everyone. And, just in general, there are two sides to every person. And this idea of having an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other shoulder goes all the way back to, you can go back to John Milton during the Renaissance, and you can go back to the Platonic ideal during Plato's and Aristotle's era 2,800 years ago. This idea that we have good and bad in us, and we're constantly dealing with these two sides. This duality of mankind is ultimately what has led us to this construct of religion, in a sense. But that's a different class. Gestalt therapy is well suited also for a group context. It encourages direct experience and actions as opposed to merely talking about conflicts, problems, and feelings. This is done by the use of experiments in a group. If members have anxieties pertaining to some future event, they can enact these future concerns in the present. The here and now focus enlivens the group and assists members in vividly exploring their concerns. Leaders tend to take an active role in creating experiments to help members tap their resources, with leaders frequently engaging in self-disclosure. Leaders are especially concerned with awareness, contact, and experimentation. When working collaboratively with clients, we can discover how to best help them resolve the difficulties they experience internally, interpersonally, and in the context of their social environment. Here is a group exercise called Making the Rounds, which is used in a Gestalt group therapy practice. It involves asking a person in a group to go up to others in the group and either speak to or do something with each person. The purpose is to confront, to risk, to disclose the self, to experiment with new behavior, and to grow and change. So the idea here is to challenge yourself to do something that you're feeling very uncomfortable with, but in a safe group environment. There are opportunities to creatively use Gestalt methods with culturally diverse populations. One of the advantages of drawing on Gestalt experiments is that they can be tailored to fit the unique way in which an individual perceives and interprets his or her culture. Gestalt therapy is particularly effective in helping people integrate the polarities within themselves. Many bicultural clients experience an ongoing struggle to reconcile what appears to be diverse aspects of the two cultures in which they live. So, for example, if you are half Asian and half African American, there are two very distinct cultures with very different cultural expectations, and that push and pull from mom and dad will cause a lot of internal conflict that you have to learn how to manage. There are many opportunities to apply Gestalt experiments in creative ways with diverse client populations. In cultures where indirect speech is the norm, nonverbal behaviors may emphasize the unspoken content of verbal communication. These clients may express themselves nonverbally more expressively than they do with words. Finally, let's look at the contributions of Gestalt therapy. Gestalt therapy is a creative approach that uses experiments to move clients from talk to action and experience. Gestalt therapy is a holistic approach that values each aspect of the individual's experience equally. The creative and spontaneous use of active experiments is a pathway to experiential learning. Clients are provided with a wide range of tools in the form of Gestalt experiments for discovering new facets of themselves and making decisions about changing their course of living. Although Gestalt therapy was light on empirical research for several years, it has come more into vogue recently. Both process and outcome studies have advanced the theory and practice of Gestalt therapy, and they summarize a number of significant findings based on outcome research. So that is it for today's presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to email or text me. If you are not in my class, please feel free to leave me a comment and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Otherwise, have a fantastic day. Thank you.
Oof, that was pretty interesting. Thanks for the good time. Catch up later.